Hello, YouTube Pipers. Or hello, YouTube Pipers. I don't know if you got it the first time. Double O Pipe here, aka Rick. I'm gonna open this canister and drop out this. What is this? This is a Perdomo Reserve Champagne 10th Anniversary Magnum 50. Means nothing to me. It's a cigar. Wow. Looks like a long cigar, too. And there we have it. I don't know why I chose this one. I just did. All right, let me circumcise it. Kind of ragged, huh? Hope it doesn't hurt. I'll fill this again, see if it would work. Let's see if it works. That's not bad at all. Nah. That's about as big a red circle as I'm going to get, I think. Oh, man. I don't know what I did, but that hit the back of my throat and the top of my nose, and it left them both ragged. It had a mellow taste to begin with, and then bam. I'm concerned that same thing's going to happen. That's why I'm kind of blowing the smoke out before it even gets in my mouth. Well, let me see if I can get this story straight. I've thought about it a bit. I was in college. It was Friday afternoon, and I got home, and I just threw my books down and said, that's it for a couple of days. It had been a rough week. I never had any problems making all A's, grammar school and high school, but man, college, it was rough. I rarely studied in my prep schools and grammar and high, but you couldn't get away with that here in college, especially calculus. Man, I did not understand, and I never had problems with math. Mm. But anyway, when I got to the house and put my books down and made that decision I was just going to relax for the next couple of days, then the phone rang. Picked up, said hello, and on the other end I hear, "Hey, Neff, want to crack a seal?" I said, "You know I do." I said, "That's my favorite sound in the world." And he said, "Okay, I'll be over in just a few minutes." I said, "Okay, I'll be ready." Well, I walked out of my room and I walked past the TV room where Mom and Dad were watching something on TV. And I said, "I'll see you later. I'm going out." And Dad said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, come back here." He said, "Where you going?" I said, "Clyde's coming over to pick me up." Anytime I mentioned Clyde's name, once I'd gotten into college, he always got this look on his face. And he said, "Now, you're going to be okay, right? You've got a dime in case you need to call for me to come get you." And I pulled out a dime and held it up, and I said, "Yes, sir, there it is right there." He said, "Don't feel hesitant to do it if you feel like you need to get home." I said, "Okay, I'll be fine." That's got a new taste to it. It's kind of sweet. Don't know what it is, though. Anyway, once I had gotten to college, I noticed that my dad changed a little. We were out one day raking leaves, and well, he was raking leaves, and I was kind of leaning on mine, looking at the sky. And that was kind of the way it was all the time. My granddaddy was over there one day, and I was helping my dad by leaning on my rake, looking at the sky while he and Granddad were over there doing something. And Granddad looked at me and he said, "You know, Al," Dad said, "What?" He said, "You know what kids are good for?" He said, "No, what?" He said, "Two things." He said, "What two things?" "Eating and shitting." I'll never forget my granddad saying that. I never heard him say anything like that before. But he was looking at me when he said it. So I started raking. Anyway, this particular day, my dad said, "Ricky." I looked up and I started raking real fast. I said, "No, no, no, just calm it down and you don't need to rake for a minute." He said, "I just wanted to talk to you." I thought to myself, uh-oh, what have I done now? He said, I think I need to talk to you. Now you're in college. I was thinking, what in the world have I done something? You know, the whole gamut goes through your mind. And he said, "You're at that age, you know, it's just that, well, I need to," yeah, and he stopped and he said, "I need to, you know, the, the birds and the bees." And I'm looking at him like, what the heck is going on here? He said, "I think I need to talk to you about that, but, you know, I think Clyde's already told you everything you probably already know it all. So let's just say this." After all this umming and humming, he said, "If you ever need to ask a question, come to me and I'll help you as best I can." I was thinking to myself, what's he talking about? right off the bat. Clyde had told me a lot of dubious things that I was supposed to understand about this delicate subject. And he always had that twinkle in his eye when he'd tell me these things. Uh, and we were pretty dumb back in those days. We didn't know a whole lot. I mean, not like it is today. I mean, kids when they're 5, they know everything. Us? Nah, we didn't know anything. But I knew what my dad was trying to get across to me. And I said, "Okay, Dad, if I ever need to ask you something, I'll come to you." Knowing I would never go to him. I mean, he was this guy who was ramrod straight, tough, talking about a delicate thing like that. And I thought to myself, no. And we never talked about it again. Well, anytime I said I was going somewhere with Clyde, that would, not that particular episode, but he always got a little concerned about my being with my uncle. So, I hear the rumble of Clyde's car coming down the road. You ever see the movie Thunder Road? That's what it sounded like. Well, they came up and he beeped the horn outside, and I said, "There he is. I'm going. I'll see you later." He said, "Try to be back early." And I said, "Yes, sir." Ran out the door. Clyde backed out of the driveway once I got in. Put it in first and roared down the road. I mean, those mufflers were that close to being just straight pipe. But they had a nice rounded rumble to them, not that raw. Blip, 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 blip. Yeah, they had a nice rounded rumble to them. That was important back in those days. Had to have that sound. Well, got to the end of the road and he stopped. He said, "You ready to crack a seal?" I said, "You know I'm ready to crack a seal. Love that sound." Reached down under the seat and he pulled out a pint, handed it to me, and I went, crack. And he gave me 2 cups, and we had mixer down there, and I poured it into the cups. He said, "Neff, pour it like it ain't yours." That was always what he said. "Neff, pour it like it ain't yours." There is a sweetness in here I can't put my finger on. It's not a bad tasting cigar. It's kind of a long one though. Pretty big around, got a nice girth to it. And like I say, there's a sweetness there somewhere hidden in that smoke. Poured them up, poured the chaser in it, not chaser, but the mixer in it, handed him his and handed me mine, and we tore off down the road, going to the Patio Drive-In. It was a meeting place for the young folk. They would drive up there and mingle amongst themselves. It was, if you've ever seen that movie where the kids are driving up and down the street and parking at a drive-in restaurant, that's exactly what it was. There were 2 in town that we used to go to. The Patio was the one we went to mainly. And he drove up under there was a overhang to keep the rain off when it was raining. And he pulled up into one of the spaces, and a girl came out and said, "What you want, handsome?" And to me, she looked over and said, "What do you want, Rick?" There was always a distinct difference in the approach of their requests as to what you wanted when it was him and when it was me. Told him what we wanted, and we sat there, and lots of his friends drove up and came over and yacked with him, and I think we got a hamburger or something, and we were just polishing off cup after cup until finally I said, "Well, a dead soldier." And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Yeah, but I got a replacement," and handed it to me. His favorite brand was Calvert Extra. It was the light whiskey. I don't know if they still make it or not. But it was the cheapest thing that he could get that he enjoyed the taste of. I didn't enjoy the taste of any of them, but I certainly was wild about the effects that it gave you. So I mixed another couple of drinks, and somebody was talking outside the car, and Clyde said, "What was that? What were you talking about?" And the fellow said, "You know, the ghost out at Somerville." And he said, "What ghost?" "You haven't heard about the ghost out at Somerville?" "No." I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I don't think Clyde did either. He said, "Yeah, it's said that there's the ghost of a woman who walks along the road going to the train station to meet her husband. But her husband was killed in the Wawa, as they say down here. And now, after she's died, she's still walking up and down that road, trying to get to the train station to meet her husband, and she has a lantern that she carries with her." And Clyde said, "Well, where is this?" And the guy told him where it was. And I said, "You know where that is, Clyde?" And he said, "Yeah, I think so. We can find it. You want to let's go over there and take a look at it?" I said, "What else we got to do?" Let's go. So Somerville's about 25 miles away, and he tore off down the road, and didn't take him long to get there. And he drove up to where the area was and where the road had been way back when, because it was like woods over on either side and just kind of a trail that was wide enough for maybe a car to get through if it had to. And I said, "What are we looking for?" He said, "I don't know, Neff. They said it was a light." It was dark. There were no lights or anything around. No street lights is what I mean. It was out in, like I say, a field. And it was dark way out there where we were looking, where the road was. And all of a sudden, Clyde said, "Hey, Neff, see that?" I said, "What?" He said, that light way down there. And I looked hard and I said, "Yeah, what do you think it is?" He said, "I don't know. Let's wait here and see. See if what they say is true." So we both sat there sipping our drinks and watching that light way down, just a tiny speck. It wasn't very big. I said, "Clyde, is that thing moving?" He said, "I think it is." And he was looking, and it just seemed a little bit brighter, a little bit larger than what it had been, that speck down there. And as we watched, it seemed to be getting bigger. He said, "That's not getting bigger, that's coming toward us." And it started to sway back and forth like a lantern might, somebody were carrying it. I said, "You think that's that ghost?" And he was looking down there too. I said, "I don't know, but that light's not just getting bigger, it's coming closer. So we kept staring at it. Little by little, it gained in strength and size, still slightly swayed. And we kept our eyes on it. And he said, "You think it's going to reach us?" I said, "I don't know. I'm not sure." And then it stopped. Just stopped. He said, "It's not moving anymore, is it?" And I looked as hard as I could. I said, "I don't think so. Maybe it's not going to reach us." And then it disappeared. Just like that. He said, "Where'd it go?" I said, "I don't know." It was there, and now it's not. And I said, "That kind of gives me the creeps." He said, "You know, Neff, kind of gives me the creeps too. Let's get out of here." So that was our introduction and our last sight of the ghost of Somerville. I don't know if anybody even talks about that anymore. But it was a big thing back then. And a lot of people had seen it. I don't know that they had seen the woman who was carrying that light, but everybody had seen the light, and they always called it the light in Somerville. But that was the story behind that light. And there's lots and lots of ghosts in Charleston. You need to check that out if you ever come to Charleston. A lot of ghosts. Anyway, he cranked that baby up and whipped it around, got back on the highway, and drove us on home. Because it was after midnight. Got to the house, and he dropped me off, said, "See you later, Neff." I said, "Take care." I went up to the house. It was dark because everybody was asleep. And I tiptoed in as best I could, as best a drunk can. Tried to be as quiet as possible. My parents knew, or my dad knew. Never said anything, though, but he always knew. I have to tell you about the friend of mine who lived in Somerville, I think it was, up near Somerville. I'll tell that another time. That was a fun story. At any rate, that's my story for today, and I'm sticking to it, as they say. Take care of yourselves. Have a smoke. Have a pipe. Have a beverage. A cup of chaw. And God bless you. Till the next time. Bye-bye.